Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Today, Native Instruments, the Grandeur. This is my second favorite piano sample library. Today I'm going to go through and give you all the quirks and features. I'm going to look at every parameter of this instrument. Let's load it up. Here we go. It's a pretty lean piano. It's 6.5 gigabytes compressed. 14 gigabytes of samples when uncompressed. According to the literature from NI, they say there are 2,500 samples, 9 release samples per key, 18 velocity zones, and special resonance samples. And I can definitely attest to those resonance samples. As far as the 18 velocity zones, when I look under the hood, there appear to be 8 sampled layers, and each key is individually sampled. It could be that they're doing something special with the velocity to make their appear to have 18 velocity layers, but they actually call them velocity zones. What I like about this piano is it's simple. It's easy to get a good tone out of it. You have a tone control here, you have an anatomy control here, and you have your space, which is a convolution reverb. Within our tone, we have some additional coloring that we can do here. Here in the anatomy category, we have additional parameters to control how the sample library reacts to our controller. Let's start with tone. So our basic control allows us to have a harder or a softer tone. You can think of this as brightness or dullness. So the soft sound. A very hard sound. We can control click any of the circular dials or the sliders in this interface, and they'll go back to their default value. It's probably command click on a Mac, but I'm not a Maceteer. We can control the piano lid, so we have it fully open or full mast, and we can have a half mast right here. It would have been nice if this picture had changed also, and then we can have it completely closed. We'll leave it open for now. Let's go into the detailed controls. First up, we have the equalizer, and it's listed as bass, body, and air. But you can think of this as bass, mids, and high. We have to turn it on in order for it to work. And all of these controls can be controlled with continuous controller information. Let's go ahead and assign it really quickly. So if I right-click on this, I can say Learn MIDI CC, move a slider on my Kronos, and there we are. Okay, now I can turn that on and off with a button on my controller. I can also control all the dials. Let's go ahead and hear how well the equalizer controls the sound. The bass. That's a lot of control. Can get pretty boomy, or you can emasculate it. Let's look at the body. That's nice. Let's take a look at the air. Yes, these are simple controls, but they have an amazing range over the sound. I like them. Let's turn the equalizer off for now. Let's look at tonal depth, whether we want the sound more resonant or whether we want it natural. So let's listen to the natural sound, and we have to turn it on. Getting that ring from the strings with the resonance. I personally like a little bit of resonance. I find a little bit of resonance goes a long way, and when we talk about the resonances down here, you'll see what I mean. Let's turn off tonal depth and move on to transients. This is the aggressiveness of the tone. So if we put the attack at the maximum, and you've probably seen a patch on a synthesizer or actually a Rompler at some time that says tack piano, and this is kind of that sound, very aggressive sounding. If we go the other way, we're going to have more sustain. So it's going to be a little bit more dreamy and muddy. I like it somewhere in the middle. All right, let's turn this off. Low keys. I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, and if you look in this area, you'll see exactly what's happening. You're skewing the whole keyboard with a bias towards the low end, so you can make that lower end more dominant or less dominant. And in conjunction with the other controls you have, such as the equalizer, you've got a lot of tonal control. Let's go ahead and put that back in the center for now. Last but not least, under our tone, we have a compressor. In order to use it, we've got to turn it on. So let's turn it on. We have some choices here. If we click on the title, we'll get others. And you can pick any of these that you want. Some of them have a pretty hard knee on them. Others are very smooth like this one. Whichever ones you prefer. With this control set to 0, we're not going to get any compression. As we turn it to the right, it's going to get harder and harder compression. And at 100%, I don't have to play very hard at all to have a pretty loud sound. You can tell the tone is relatively soft. Now if I start to hammer the piano tone will get brighter, but it won't get necessarily appreciably louder. So that's your compressor. I'm not a true lover of compression, not for solo piano. That should be left up to the dynamics of the player. Obviously, when recording, compression can become almost mandatory so that the piano part will sit well in a mix. But that's up to you. That's it for our tone controls. Let's take a look at the anatomy. The basic controls we have are dynamic range, and essentially that's going to work a lot like compression. If we put it down to 0, there's going to be no dynamic range. Playing even softly is going to sound pretty loud, and I will play softly. As I play harder and dig into the keyboard, it's going to get brighter, but it's not really appreciably going to get any louder. Brightness does give us that feeling that things are getting louder. On the other end of the scale, I'm going to be able to play softly, and it will sound soft. And I'm going to have to hammer the keyboard with a sledgehammer to get it to sound loud. That's me beating my poor little Kronos, and it's still not that loud. Somewhere in the middle sounds good to me, and that's about where I like it. Resonances. Let's talk about this. I know that not everybody is a piano aficionado, and I'm not. But here's what resonances are. There's a damper on every string of a piano. When I play a note, the damper for that note is lifted off of the string, allowing the string to vibrate freely. When I release the note, the damper falls back to the string, and within so many milliseconds, the string stops vibrating. Resonances allows other strings to sympathetically vibrate when I press one string, and have the others sympathetically vibrate. If I'm just pressing one key and I'm not pressing the pedal, only the string that I'm hitting with the hammer, the one note, is affected. When I lift all of the dampers off of the strings by using the pedal, it allows other strings to sympathetically vibrate. Those are just the sound waves from the notes that I'm already playing affecting the other strings. And since they're not muted by the dampers, they can vibrate. That's called sympathetic vibration. The best way to hear this effect is for me to put it at 0, play a chord, hold the pedal, and rotate it up and down so you can hear those additional strings vibrating. Now, as I said before when I was talking in the tone area here, and we were talking about a more resonant sound versus a more natural sound, a little bit of resonance goes a long way. And resonance can liven up the sound of a piano. Of course, the pedal has to be depressed so the other strings can sympathetically vibrate. So that's all that resonance is about right here. Let's get into the details. First up, we have overtones. Let's go ahead and turn it on. I've got to tell you, I really don't hear a lot of change. If it's subtle, I'm not hearing it, but my ears are old, so maybe that's it. Let's move on to stereo image, something we really can hear. In the center position, it's as the piano was recorded, probably with multiple mics. At least 2 of them for sure, to have a stereo image. If we go all the way to the left, we're going to get a mono image. Conventional wisdom says that the lower notes will be more dominant in the left speaker or your left headphone. And the higher notes will be more dominant in your right ear or your right speaker. We're not going to hear that when it's in mono. If we go with maximum stereo image here, we're going to get a very nice spreading out of the sound. That is a really cool sounding image. Now, some people may say, well, it's overemphasized and it's unnatural. That is probably true. The thing is, if it sounds good and you like it, there's no reason why you can't use it. Swap just swaps the left and the right channel. Let's go on to the velocity for the keys here. This is just setting up the velocity curve for your controller. Personally, I like it at linear. That works for me. But if you want softer velocities, even when you're playing harder, you can choose this curve and some of the other soft velocity curves. You can see that even a medium velocity is going to be a lot lower, especially when you compare it to the opposite end of that spectrum. Medium velocities here are going to be a lot higher volume. That's me playing pretty softly, and it's a lot louder than it would be with the linear. Silent key is a very interesting feature. It's not really a gimmick. This is something that actually happens in real pianos. It's possible to press a key on a real piano and not have the piano make any sound. If you press it very, very slowly, the hammer will move, but there hasn't been enough force for the physics for it to strike the string. And this is what silent key is all about. I'll play a note, this one right here, and you can hear that note, and you can see it going on. And now what I'm going to do is play exceptionally softly. You can see that the key lit up, but it didn't make any sound. And that's what silent key is all about. I'm not sure exactly what the velocity range is on this. It's probably less than about 5 or 10 on the velocity scale, which goes from 0 to 127. This is an interesting feature, and it allows you to mimic a real piano. And sometimes when you're playing, the corner of your thumb or your pinky might catch another key at a very, very soft velocity. And this would eliminate those stray notes. I personally don't use it, but it's there if you want to. Pedaling. Okay, we have repedaling. Pedaling works with release samples, so I'll just jack these up for now. All that repedaling does is, unlike pedaling, which just sustains your sound, repedaling sustains your releases. So if we turn that on and then we release the keys and then engage the pedal, we should be able to engage our release samples. And that's what repedaling is. Half pedaling works a little differently. If you remember, when you press the pedal, it takes all of the dampers away from the strings. Half pedaling allows you to have the dampers move away from the strings, but not completely. They're limiting the range of vibrations of the string. So this is just for an example. Let's say a string is vibrating on its axis, which it does, 2 millimeters in all directions. If you were to half pedal and pull the damper away only 1 millimeter, that would limit the string's vibrations to 1 millimeter and then down to 0. So it's going to change the release characteristics of the sound. Think of a synthesizer ADSR and the sound fading out. The sound is going to fade out a little faster. The vibrations, the bigger they are, the louder they are. And so it's also going to change the velocity dynamics to some degree. Now, I am no expert on repedaling and half pedaling, and if I've gotten any of that wrong, people can correct me in the comments. I've been playing piano for years, but I've never owned a piano that has had this ability. And quite honestly, I've never been inclined to use it when I've sat at a piano that has it. Let's talk about release samples. These make a huge difference to the sound. When you release the keys on a real piano, the dampers fall back to the strings, but they don't mute the sound instantly. They don't stop the vibrations of those strings instantly. The strings still continue to vibrate a little bit, and obviously at a softer level. And that's all that these release samples are approximating. Let me play it with the release samples first, and then I'll play it without them. I think you'll really miss the release samples. Now you might say, it sounds a little bad, but that's just because I'm overemphasizing it so you can hear them. At a lower level, much better. I generally leave these on because it sounds better with them. I do back them off a little bit from the default value. The default value is -6 dB. And I like them somewhere between about 12 and 8, -12 and 8 dB, that is. Let's talk about the noises. Technically not a gimmick, but something I'm glad they have, but that I can turn off. So these are some of the noises that a piano makes. Remember, a piano is a mechanical machine, and it makes sounds inside as the workings of the piano are affected by you pressing the keys and the pedals. So let's talk about these. First of all, the hammers. This is the hammer striking the string and then returning to its position, and that's a mechanical sound. It's really a clunky sound, and it's a low-pitch sound. So if we play lower notes, you may not hear it. As we approach the middle register, you'll hear it a little bit more. And in the upper register, you should be able to hear it quite prominently. So that's the hammers moving. Let's take a look at the damper. The damper moves away from the strings when you press the pedal. Understand that I've significantly increased the volume of the damper sound just so you can hear it beyond the -10 dB. And it kind of sounds like the piano breathing in a way. Next up, the pedal sound. And this is the external pedal sound of you just pressing the pedal on the ground. Once again, emphasized in post-production so you can really hear it. If you've ever seen a really nice grand piano or even an upright piano, generally there's a certain amount of felt or dampening material around the pedal to minimize this sound. But it wears out over time, so that's something that you need to replace if you buy an old piano and you're getting a lot of pedal noise and you don't like it. Next up, the string sound. So as I've already said, the dampers sit against the strings, but the longer they sit there and the more they rise and fall, they kind of get indentations from the string or the strings that they're surrounding, anywhere from 1 to 3 strings generally on different types of pianos. And so they get these kind of little teeth on them that kind of wrap around the string a little bit. When you press the pedal, there's a frictional pull on the string, making the string sound. And it sounds like this. Once again, I've emphasized this sound in post-production so you can really hear it. And there's probably going to be a lot of noise with these samples. These noises here are up to you whether you want to include them and at what level you'd like to include them. Playing piano in the dark or in a darkened room with some mood lighting can be a lot of fun. And being able to control the noises is not necessarily a gimmick. Playing a controller and hearing these sounds can give you the illusion that you're playing a real piano. So it's kind of nice from that perspective. From a recording perspective, as a composer, I turn all of these off. I don't need any more clutter in my sound. It's hard enough to mix without these noises being in there. So let's turn them off. Last but not least in our anatomy, we have the tuning. And it's not a huge range, so we start at 440, which we're going to call our concert pitch. And we can go down to 436, and we can go up to 444. Generally going up in pitch a small amount is something you can really hear. So you can hear that. It's relatively subtle. When I was a kid and I was playing along with cassette tapes of the people that I liked, also playing along with vinyl, I would often find that the piano that I was playing was either a little bit flat or a little bit sharp compared to the vinyl or to the cassette. And in a lot of cases, my mom had just got the piano tuned. So what's the problem? Could be the device I'm playing it back on is not perfectly set. But this allows you to, tune your piano with whatever you're playing back with. And I think it's a nice feature because if you have a real piano, there's no way to quickly tune every key and then put it back to where it was for the next song. So a nice feature. When it comes to stretched and equal tuning, I don't want to really get into that. But stretched tuning is how this instrument was recorded. So you're going to get a more natural sound using the stretch tuning. It's not going to be appreciably different with equal, but you can try it. Last but not least, we need to talk about our spaces. We don't have a ton of controls, and quite honestly, I'm happy with that. It's true about the entire instrument. They've kept it simple. They give you just what you really need to get a good sound. A little bit of space really goes a long way. So let's turn it on, and we'll hear it with it, but first without it. Let's play a little bit. Yeah, it's a good space. So if you come down here to these spaces and the title here, you can click on it and get a list. And you can choose any of these. And I think I've tried probably all of them and they all sound good. I don't think there's a bad one in there. And they're convolution reverb, so they're real spaces. As far as these controls are concerned, you have an amount and at 0 you're not going to get anything. Same thing with the size of the room or the size of the space. And then distance is the distance of the instrument, which is our piano, from the listener. You can think of it as pre-delay. I've gone through all the features now, but let me tell you about one thing that I wish it had. And it's only really one, which is amazing. And that's presets and the ability to store your own. It's great that you can go through all of these, but there's no super fast way to store your own presets. You can go over here just like you can in any contact instrument. And I can save this as, and I can give it a name and store it, and then I can call it up. And it's not that hard to do. But it would have been nice to have a little drop-down list here with pop piano, rock piano, ballad piano, cinematic piano, house piano, for those that are looking to get somewhere really quickly and may not know a ton about piano. Right now, I'd like to make a couple of sounds. Let's go ahead and make a cinematic sound so you can just see that it is possible to get a lot of different tones with this piano. We have to decide what the character of a cinematic piano is. And to me, that's something that's soft and something that has a huge amount of reverb on it. So let's go with something like a cathedral. Now, this has got a lot of hard spaces if it's a true cathedral, probably stone walls, which is usually an indicator of giving us a bright response. But with a soft sound, we should be fine. Let's turn up the space amount and the size. See what we got. Okay, that might work. I think that's pretty good. You can certainly probably do a lot better than I can. If we go back to the sound we had, something that I would like, let's kill some of the reverb, make it just a little bit more prominent. For the sounds I would like, I like that there's enough control here that you can have a bright piano and still have some bass with some chutzpah to it. A lot of pianos, when you increase the brightness, you just lose your low end, and that's not the case here. Let's create a house piano sound. So what are the characters of a house piano sound? A hard sound, for sure, not a lot of reverb. So let's kill that. We can go into the tone here and we can just make the attack really hard. The other thing we might want to do is go into the EQ and just emasculate the mids a little bit. And let's see. That's just me playing around really quickly. Maybe it sounds like a house piano, maybe it doesn't, but you can certainly have some fun. Okay, let's wrap up this episode. There is enough tone control here. There's enough in the anatomy section to allow you to set it up so it responds to your touch and your playing characteristics. And the spaces are nice. You could argue that maybe you want some high frequency dampening on the space because you don't have enough here. If that's the case, look at the tone controls and kill a little bit of your highs here or over here. Or don't use this space at all. Use a plugin in your DAW. This would be a great piano plugin for somebody playing a gig and using a laptop and they need some real sounding acoustic piano. It's also good for the studio. It has a lot of tailored controls. I'm a fan of this piano, and like I said, it's my second favorite piano sample library. I've called it the every person's piano and the generic grand piano in a good way, and hopefully I've demonstrated that to you today. This is my honest opinion. I've used this in cues and on pop songs, and I like it. I like it a lot. Let me just talk quickly about pricing. At $99 for full retail, it's a good value. And 15, 20 years ago, when piano libraries started hitting the market, things like Ivory and whatnot, they were in the 200 plus range. For $99, this is a really great piano. But maybe it doesn't have the tones that you want, and piano is very personal to the individual. So I can't tell if you would like it or not. Hopefully I've given you enough detail today to help you figure that out. Another aspect of this with price is it goes on sale at least twice a year, I think. Usually in the summer and then again towards the December holidays. And generally I've seen it for $49.50, which is half price. And that's a really great value. A really great value for a really good piano. The people that put this piano together really did a great job. That's it for this episode. I do appreciate your time. I know there's a lot of people looking for your eyeballs to watch their material. So thanks for stopping by. Take care, and I'll be back in another episode soon.